and I'm here with Anthony Verberkmus, and we're the Anarchist and The Moderate. So we're just going to talk about politics and philosophy, etc., and what's going on locally and how it ties into provincial, federal, international. So what are we going to talk about today, Anthony?
Well, Jesus, on the way over here, we were driving on Dundas Street, and we can see it plain as day. Everyone sees it. There's a crisis going on our streets. There's homeless people and various other people on the streets, and everyone is upset by it. And clearly things are not good. Problem is, you've got a number of people going out there who are just pushing to give these people even more trouble. These people sleeping on the streets, staying on the streets, these people often with mental health issues, addiction issues, poverty issues, violence issues, and they generally want more police dealing with them. They want more criminal involvement, more court involvement, more jail involvement, and I just think there's some of us who really want to see a stepping up of the other side of things, maybe more of a visible presence that says, you know, these are people too. These are often people we know, or people that live in our vicinity, people that we care about as much as we do anybody else. Like, there's a saying that's very true, and people don't realize you have more in common with that homeless guy than you do the billionaire who can afford to shoot himself into space. I mean, come on. That's the truth. How many paychecks are each of us away from living on the street with them? You know? That's the reality. It's a vortex of poverty and mental health and addiction and spiraling costs and all of these things going together in a sick society, you know, all at the same time, and it's producing all these people, and then it's taken out on them, you know, and you can see it building up and building up. And all of these things, like we were saying, there's no sign that I can see that any of these things that are feeding the issue are being dealt with. The cost of living is just continuing to spiral and spiral. The safety net, like what people are making who are in the lower brackets of things, that's not really going up. It's little tiny increments at a time, while costs are jumping up and jumping up, especially rent. I mean, when it comes right down to the most direct issue, rent in probably all over Ontario, but definitely in the neighborhood I'm in, which was really a poor and working class neighborhood for all the time I've been there, and now a lot of us are having trouble being able to have a place that's secure, that we can afford to live.
Ford took away rent control. That's part of the problem.
Since Ford came in, a problem that was starting to develop has just gone through the roof.
And the government's answer at two levels of government is likely criminalization of being poor. And you talked about it in the car, Anthony, on the way over here about, we're attacking immigrants and punching down to the most vulnerable people.
It's true.
So, instead of dealing with the problems, politicians like Polly Everett can just say, well, it's the immigrants. It's all their fault. So we scapegoat the immigrants, and in the meantime, we don't do anything about the problem, which is, one, the real estate trusts and the corporations are allowed to buy up all the housing. And then we do all these kickbacks, or maybe not kickbacks, but incentives for developers to build these big homes that nobody can afford anyways.
Yeah.
And then we're going to war in the Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, and suddenly there's no...
There's money for that, but there's not money to deal with people's needs here in the neighborhood.
Exactly. So when wars and and the price of fuel goes up, and we had the pandemic, and as bad as Trudeau is, like Harper during the 2009 crash bailed out the banks using the CMHC for $114 billion. And we don't know really if they paid all the money back, and if it's there, then let's use it to help build affordable housing. But nobody really has a plan for affordable housing. More than 200 people have died on the streets of London, and it's because that the policies that the Conservatives have, municipally and provincially, are akin to social murder. They've closed safe consumption sites, and all the evidence says this is going to kill people.
That is insanity. That is insanity. And this is one of the things, is it reminds me of 1984. Like, when it comes to this issue, it's so sticky for them to deal with, because how does it benefit rich people? Because that's the bottom line in our society, is anything you want to accomplish has to somehow benefit some rich guy, at least some rich guy, if not more. And the poor, the desperately poor, like, there's no big money. There are careers being made off dealing with them, like all these agencies and stuff popping up all over the place. And those are a lot of people. I'm sure to get into that business, you must feel like you want to help. I can't imagine going to work every day dealing with people if you didn't feel, deeply in a positive way about helping people. But I mean, this is more of a Band-Aid. This is all they do, is these Band-Aid solutions that are set more to manage the situation. Like, how many are dying each year in London, like you say. They don't want to let the number, that's how it reminds me of 1984, is it's all about the perception that's being projected to the people. You don't want that number getting up too high, where people start going, oh my God, how many people died in London's streets? Like
10% of the homeless population.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Why? You have to ask yourself why, if our society is so wonderful, if capitalism is really fulfilling people in our time, and our society is one of the richer societies on earth, why are there a growing number of people living in the parking lot near my house? Why are there scores of people on Dundas Street strung out every day? Like, why is our society producing that? And what are the solutions? Like, City Hall, in their infinite wisdom and their deep felt concern for the tragedy unfolding in front of them, they just seem to be managing it. They just seem to want to set up little things to deal with people that are just assumed are gonna fall through and not have housing and be stuck in this vortex, this spiraling phenomena, spiraling set of circumstances that bring people into a worse and worse and worse situation.
People are blaming Trudeau, but it's really neoliberalism that started in '73, we can talk about that. Naomi Klein's shock doctrine goes into detail about how when Pinochet did his coup, the Ford Foundation paid for young people to come from Chile and learn economics from Milton Friedman. They wanted to try the perfect free market. Decrease social spending, decrease taxes, privatize and deregulate. So basically it was an experiment where you had 100% perfect free market, and it would make the rich rich and the poor poor and gut the middle class. And that's what it's done over 60 years. The World Bank was in on it, the IMF was in on it, and the countries that didn't have that happen are the Nordic countries, because they had a progressive tax system. And they did the opposite. They regulated capital. They increased social spending. They transferred wealth to the middle class and the poor. instead of upwards like the neoliberal model. So you can criticize Trudeau all you want, like he's
There's
not
plenty to criticize for sure, and we will maybe dedicate an episode to him to let people know that it's not just the right wing that hates Trudeau. But it's not just Trudeau. It's definitely not just Trudeau. This is happening all over the place. Definitely across America, across Canada, in Western Europe. This is all happening broadly. So you ask yourself, in the spirit of punching upward, if we can agree that these people with nothing, these people who wake up in the outdoors in a Canadian winter that's coming soon, if we're not going to blame them and kick them while they're laying there on the pavement, who are we looking at? Who is benefiting from this situation? Who is in control? Who has their hands on the steering wheel right now? Who has the power in this situation where these people with no power are suffering?